I can't hear you. Wait.
I didn't look.
Now can you hear me?
Yay, okay.
Now I can hear you.
Oh, let
Bit
me,
of delay.
It should be.
hold on. No, because I have the YouTube playing also.
Um,
We were having you like in weird stereo. Okay, so we'll grab the guys from my class. So this is Paul Tonning right here.
Hello, Paul.
And he's the professor in this class at C++.
C++ programming, yeah.
Yeah, he teaches all kinds of cool stuff. And then, so you're on a cart. It's not quite like one of those cool robotic iPad carts, but it's the best we can do. It's a community college. We're low budget.
I'm missing the joystick that lets me roll around.
Yeah, I know. Okay, I'm going to go fetch my class in the room next door.
Okay.
So I will be back shortly. You guys be nice.
Okay. Eric, could you introduce yourself to us? This is the, well, no, it's the C++ class. Where the, yeah, we'll have a little meeting before meeting. So.
Yes. So I'm Eric Hennigan. I'm a friend of Debbie's from quite a long time back, way before I joined Google. And I've only actually been at Google since March, so about 9-10 months. I really do like it here. It's kind of fun.
And what you're a software architect, engineer?
They hired me as a software engineer in test, and then after they hired me, the entire organization renamed that role.
Okay.
So I'm software engineer tools and infrastructure now. And our job is really focused on making the other engineers more productive by providing them tools through which they can develop and test their software.
Okay. So you build test harness type software, or?
A lot of that's already built, of course, but yes. We do build frameworks that hook into it that are specific to a certain product's needs.
Okay. Well, she's bringing in the
junior squad.
the junior squad. The entry points, or the entry folks.
Hey, Matt, come say hi to Eric. I don't know if, can you see Matt back there?
I can, yes. Hello, Matt.
Got all the curls back there.
So it turns out that software is a lot like tooling in a sort of a mechanical industry. That is, if a car company wants to make a certain part or something, then they develop a whole lot of tools to test that part. And software is pretty much the same way. There's a lot of custom tools that are just written for a specific product. They don't have a huge general use. And most software falls under that category. It's not just test frameworks, most software.
Okay.
So can he hear you okay?
Yeah, you can hear me fine. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, I'm going to step back this way.
So I think we have most everybody here that's going to be here
Yeah.
now.
Rachel's over there to chase people in this direction.
Sorry to do this again, but go ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay, so I'm Eric. I'm a longtime friend of Debbie's. We met in another city a long time ago. That was before I went to grad school, before I got a job, and before I went to Google. So it's been maybe 6 years, I guess, or more.
More. Probably closer to 10. Actually.
Closer to 10, yeah.
And Debbie, since we didn't rehearse this, your folks have some questions. How do you want to?
Well, we posted some questions.
Oh, I know. I'm talking to Debbie. Yeah.
I can actually see those on the side of my screen.
Some of the questions got voted on, and I noticed that there's one that's got the most votes. That's a really important question. I personally would like to know the answer.
So that's because I'm a cheapskate.
What's the question?
The question is, why haven't you brought Professor Hennigan?
The question is, why haven't I brought Professor Hennigan's swag? And I haven't even purchased myself swag. So.
Oh, really? They don't give you a lot of freebies?
I do have some T-shirts from participation in certain exercises. So I've been to some company internal conferences. I participated in a hackathon week where they sponsored us to work on whatever we wanted for a week. And I have T-shirts from those. But I haven't purchased anything from the Google Swag store.
No sticky notes or anything?
No sticky notes or anything. It turns out that the sticky notes, pens, pencils, binder clips, all of that's free. It's just hanging around the office for free.
Oh, okay.
So Eric, did you already kind of say what it is?
Yeah, so I work on the ad formats team in YouTube. And I help maintain the tests and the infrastructure that runs those tests so that YouTube can show you ads. And we consider it really bad if we can't show you ads because then we lose a lot of money. So you might all consume YouTube for free, and that's wonderful. And we even host some spots. We have some YouTube studios for the content creators to come in and use. But the whole thing is running on ads.
So don't use AdWatch, in other words.
Well, you can.
Uh-oh.
We freeze him.
Oh, no.
See, he was about to say something top secret.
Yeah. Oh,
Uh-oh.
sorry about that.
Can you, I mean, that's funny.
It's got it.
Oh, there we go.
You're back. You were about to say something you weren't supposed to, and they froze you.
So.
Oh, man. It's the, don't talk about the ads, Eric.
Don't talk about the ads.
Oh, I'm so sorry. It's got to be our crappy number.
Are we we're hardwired, right?
What's that? Yeah, this is hardwired, but it could be, I don't know. Ask him how this streams over HTTP.
Wait. Oh no, you keep, see, you got to quit talking about the ads. I think that keeps freezing you.
Yeah, they must be editing that.
Like an internal censor, not that Google would censor stuff.
Well,
right?
no, because I just said don't use AdWatch. You were going to agree and say, yeah, well, you can, but.
It turns out that those companies that do the ad blockers make money in even sketchier ways. So the advertisers are very interested in knowing whether or not you viewed an ad, and the ad blockers know which ads they blocked. And the companies that make the blockers sell that information that this person, in aggregate, some person would have viewed an ad, but we blocked it.
Wow. It's all about the
So, if you're blocking ads for privacy reasons, that you may not be achieving your goals.
So how about I just go down the list here and ask a couple of the questions, and then we'll let these guys ask any other questions. Is that okay? Does that sound good?
Yeah, that's fine.
So it says, so Eric, you work for Google. What's your favorite thing about working there? And how much of what you learned about computer science in college do you use in your job today? Was it all relevant to what you do now? And was there anything you think you didn't need? So I don't know if he mentioned he actually got his PhD in computer science from UC Irvine. Actually, that just came up on Facebook. It was like yesterday, a year ago, that we were down there watching that.
Yep. It was pretty recent.
So the ink's still wet. So anyhow, so what's your favorite thing about working there? And
So my favorite thing is the food. They feed me 3 meals a day, which is awesome because I'm not very good at taking care of myself. And other nice things are the coworkers. They're all really pretty friendly. The office has a little game room with some Xbox and guitar, and there's at my office there's a rock wall, and I climb the rock wall every day. So that's fun too. They really like to take care of us. What I learned about computer science definitely helped me get the job, but I don't think that I use a whole lot of it on the job. So in school, there's a bunch of stuff about big O notation and how quick algorithms are, and many different kinds of algorithms like crawling graphs and trees and that sort of thing, all these data structure stuff. And it's very good background knowledge to have. It helps you get through the interview process, but it's not something you generally use day to day. So you just day to day solve very ordinary problems like I want to convert this kind of data into some other kind of data, and what's the best way that I can do that? Or I want to plug something in here and make it work over there. It's really pretty mundane problems day to day. But it turns out if you solve mundane problems over a long period of time, then in aggregate you've done really quite an impressive thing.
Okay. Okay, next question up from Steve Curdy. Have you ever used the napping pods?
I have not used the napping pods.
You will be
And
disappointed.
in fact, my site in LA did not have napping pods until this year when we opened up a building across the street.
Okay.
Do you have any used ones you want to get rid of and send over to Victorville? 'Cause I would love to have one.
No, they have all the stuff here.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, so we did actually a search for Google in Santa Monica or Venice, and these pictures came up of a building that looked like giant binoculars. Was that real?
That is real. So the building, Google acquired it, I think, in 2011, if my memory is correct, from some previous company that was renting the space. Frank Gehry designed the building. I don't know exactly when it was that he built it.
Interesting.
So it does look like there's a pair of giant binoculars out front, and you drive between them to get into the car park.
Okay. Is working for Google as challenging as one may assume it is? I mean, you always hear this stuff that it's pretty intense, you know, pretty challenging.
It is really challenging, but not in the same way that a startup would be. So Google has a lot of internal infrastructure that's already been built. They're constantly working on refactoring it and making it better and expanding out new features and that sort of thing. But a lot of the base stuff is really there. They got a system for building software. They got harnesses for testing software. They have a system for doing code reviews. It's all pretty well taken care of. If you go to a startup, though, those practices may not be in place, and you might be the one making putting them in place. And that I would consider an even greater challenge.
Okay. So
But
how?
it might pay as well. Startups have a problem with revenue.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. How often is Google updating their site, and have you ever met the owners of Google?
So it varies from product to product, but I think YouTube is either daily or weekly. So it's really pretty often. There's some other sites that we operate that might be on a monthly schedule. It's really up to the product team.
So with testing the ads, there's constantly some changes and tweaks that you have to respond to.
And we are running those all the time. We have an automated system that detects when you make a change, what tests should be run against it to make sure that it didn't break anything. I can't say the system's perfect, but it's definitely pretty awesome what they do.
Yeah, you seem pretty excited about working there. It's fun talking to you about that.
I like it a lot. The team is really nice, and the company really does do a lot to take care of you. There's health benefits. We have an on-site masseuse and haircuts. You have to pay for them, though.
But still.
But still, you don't have to leave the office.
All right, so what was the interviewing process like at Google? Did they really ask weird questions? I mean, you always read that.
They will ask fairly standard interview questions, in my opinion. So I haven't been asked to do the interviews. I'm only speaking from when I got interviewed to join. And I was interviewed twice. So the first time I interviewed for a software engineering role, and after a day of interviewing, that's 5 questions, an hour each question, and they give you a free lunch in between break. But I was denied the position. So my scores were kind of on the edge, and they decided not to. But I guess since they were on the edge good enough that they called me back 2 weeks later for a software engineer in testing. And they flew me up to Mountain View to get a bunch of interview questions that were really focused on testing. And I was able to get through those and then get a job offer.
So did you say the first round was 5 questions and each question was an hour long?
Yeah, yeah. But it takes that long to solve a question on a whiteboard and to talk about it.
Alrighty.
So the,
It's really kind of an all-day thing.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
with the questions on testing, was it they just wanted to know how you would develop a unit test or a test framework or design it, gray box, white box, black box? That kind of stuff, or-
They asked about all of that, yes. So they had their own very specific tests or specific questions, but all the questions were geared around uncovering what knowledge I had of those areas.
Okay.
And I can say from the software side, if you practice at like Leet Code and some of these other coding sites where you get these small little questions and then you write a test answer and submit it to the site and it's automatically run, that you will get questions very much in the same spirit of as those. Probably not the exact ones. We're cultivating our own battery of questions, and we don't. It's really hard to come up with questions, as any teacher knows.
Right. Yeah.
It's very difficult, and so we guard the questions that we do have in our library.
What was the name of that site that you just?
Leet Code, L-E-E-T-C-O-D-E.
Joshua or someone can write that down.
And it's not the only one. If you do a search for programming interview questions, you'll find more than one of these kinds of sites. I particularly liked that one when I was going through the interview process. So every night I would solve 3 or 4 of those for a couple of weeks before the interview, and that way my mind was really in this mode of solving those kinds of problems.
Cool.
Okay, so as someone looking to get into Cal Poly Tech for CIS or another major in a similar field, what classes would you suggest one take to find out what field they would be best in? So there are certain classes that you could take that will give you an idea of where you might fit the best.
Well, an idea generally, or just an idea for computer science? Because it does have its own focuses.
Our questioner is here, why don't you ask? Come forward a little though so he can see you.
Speak loud, a little louder.
Yeah, actually, just
Let's come up here.
I was going to ask because I want to become a CIS major in my master's, but I don't know what classes to take because I don't know if I like networking better.
I missed what position you were going for?
probably computer science.
So yeah, so she's interested in CIS. She likes, you know, in the 101 classes, you know, we cover everything. So she's not sure if she likes networking or programming or, you know, how does she figure out which direction to go? I think is what she's.
Oh, that is a hard question to answer. But a lot of the reason it's a hard question to answer is I can't make decisions for you. Right, so the curriculum is probably arranged so that you get a bunch of different exposure to a bunch of different things, right? And I can't predict which ones you'll like more than which other ones.
I meant because I don't like spending money, so I don't want to take all the classes. So I was wondering if you had any good ones.
Okay, so I'm this one's hard for me. I really don't know.
Eric, if someone has an interest more, because we had a little event where they got to do some Arduino programming microcontrollers, playing around with resistors and all the stuff with the robotics that Debbie does. And I know, what's your name again? Jessica. I think you and I talked, right? Didn't we talk about this? Yeah, so her interest, it seems like she really gets into this hardware, you know, and got into that. But she also, has a real interest in programming as well. So my suggestion was to look at computer.
Robotics sounds great.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is a good intermingling of the two things.
And so maybe computer engineering, and what's your experience with that, as opposed to computer science?
So I haven't taken any of the computer engineering classes, but I do know that they're a little bit more focused on circuitry and representing logic and circuits, which is not the same thing as programming. I mean, but it's got the same kind of Boolean algebra underlying basis, but the goal is a little different. And Google, they're not the only one, employs people to do kind of robotic-y things. So the self-driving car is a project where some engineers were able to develop the sensory systems for it, right? And we even in-house made a couple of cars. And I know that Google also designs the computers that go into its own databases. So we do have computer engineering people on staff.
So I think what I'd like to do, because we both classes have things that they have to finish up tonight. Finals are next week. I'm sure you can empathize with that. But in Paul's class, I'd like to let you guys ask some questions.
This is the C++, beginning C++ class?
Yeah.
So, anybody here have any questions that you'd like to ask Eric?
Okay.
Sure.
Speak up really loud.
Anthony's talk loud.
Are you involved with or know anything about the Google Fiber project, or how would I get involved with that? Because
Like to your house?
Huh?
Like get it brought to your house?
Like if I actually wanted to work, well, yes, get it in my house, but I wanted to work with it because, you know, as someone who has lived with basically 2 megabit internet, kind of networking and having advanced networking is something I almost have a passion for and like to see spread.
Well, I also would like to get it to my house.
That should be a benefit package.
But I don't know how to join that team specifically, or what it is they're looking for. I know that team has a lot of difficulty in negotiating with cities, just to do the offering. So it's far more that their impediments are social than that they're structural.
Right. So if someone's interested in getting into Google in something like Fiber or one of the other areas, is there a place they go look for job information?
I'm not sure. All of our recruiting is really done internally.
Okay.
So that means I was able to get a job because I had a profile on LinkedIn, and a recruiter from Google reached out to me. And all of our recruiting works in that sort of way. There are recruiters on staff that reach out to people, and if you join, then you can recommend to those who you would like them to reach out to, like people from your previous company, people that you worked with as a student, all that sort of stuff. So there's an internal referral system as well.
Well, you know, Alex has been at his job in Texas for about 5 months now, so it's almost time for him to move away. You need to refer somebody.
That's the way you ratchet up the ladder.
Yeah, for sure. All right, questions. My guys, if you have questions too. Paul's chomping at the bit here to ask questions.
Well, this is Rich. This is great.
Yeah.
Okay, so Eric, working in the testing environment, starting out, and everything that you're doing, was there some kind of internship opportunity that you took in order to get exposed to folks at Google or something else? I mean, as far as how did you initially, was it just a cold call recruitment, or did you have some kind of internship?
For me, it was a cold call recruitment from my profile on LinkedIn, and I was excited about that. But for many people, we do have an internship offering that we push through the school system. And we try and get a bunch of of graduates and college level students, undergraduates, come in and do an internship, and we treat them really well and try and sell them on the company, and we really want to, if they do a very good job, we really do want to have them back. And there are many people that get employed that way. So for example, my team has I think 3 people on it that got hired that way.
Do you work primarily with 4-year colleges, or are there any community colleges that you might work with as well? I mean, not you, but Google.
Just saying.
I'm not sure. I'd have to ask the people that run the program, but my hunch is that we're focused on the 4-year colleges.
Sure. Would that be something related to Summer of Code, perhaps, or?
It is definitely, that's definitely part of the outreach that we do. But I don't know if they overlap or if they're separate things.
Okay. In your day-to-day work, what's the language or the environment that you work with primarily as far as your development environment?
So primarily I do Java.
Java.
And I don't like that language, but it's one that I know, so I just take the money. It's good.
Yeah. Java's like Microsoft products. You do it for money, not for love.
I'm getting you that
Right.
shirt for food.
No, but there's a lot of things that you do because you like the outcome, not because you enjoy the particular activity. I do my laundry every week, not because I like doing laundry, but because I like having clean clothes.
Did you hear that? See, you know, Eric, that was profound. I mean, that really was quite a profound statement. I don't care, even if I don't like the activity, I like the outcome.
Yeah.
So,
So you just suffer the dislike of the activity for a while.
yeah.
So we have a question back here.
I have 2 questions. For our first programming language, like what would you suggest? What would you suggest to be a good first programming language to learn?
So I think Python is a really good first language.
And why would you say that?
I'd say that because the syntax is really kind of simple. There's not a lot of magical curly braces or parentheses or commas and semicolons. So very beginning students tend to get rather hung up on the syntax and what characters need to go where. It's a bit like magic until you get used to it. And Python doesn't have a whole lot of that. On the other hand, it also doesn't force you to be really, really verbose. You don't have to say that you're storing an integer or a floating point or a character or any of those things. C++ is really verbose about that. I know the newer version has auto, but you still have to type auto. It's kind of weird. And a lot of that is just its history. It's older. Python's newer. It benefited from research into how to make languages. And it was initially designed as a language for students to learn. And then they added a crude whatnot that made it useful for actually day-to-day work. A lot of YouTube is running on Python. Not that that was a great thing, but that's what YouTube did before Google purchased them.
I think that's a fantastic thing. By the way, CIS 83, Python, shameless plug, all right?
In the spring?
In the fall. In the fall. I'm teaching that this semester right
Yeah,
now.
Paul teaches that.
And then I have a question.
I know C++ and I know Java, and I've done a year of Python as well as use it personally. And this year I tried learning Go, and I think I like Go even better than I like Python, but I'm not sure I'd recommend it as a first language.
And that's Google's language, right?
Yeah, that's Google's Go.
So I think we got one more follow-up question back here.
Do you know anything about certificates, like a Network Plus or Security Plus certificates? Do you think to get an entry-level job, working for like doing simple stuff like working for a technological company, do you think getting certificates be a good way to get an entry-level position?
So I know that on the software developer side, we really don't care about certificates. But on the network engineering side, they might care about it a whole lot more. So we have a third group of people, the site reliability engineers, and I'm not sure whether they put a lot of stock on certificates or not. I know the software developers side, recruiting does put stock into whether or not you have a degree in computer science, which itself is a kind of certificate. But it's not one that we would go and pay a private company to obtain, really.
If you're really interested in that.
So they might care. I just don't know enough about that part of the business.
Correct. One quick thing. Getting back to Python, is Guido Van Rossum still an employee at Google?
No, he left and he's working for Dropbox.
Oh, wow. I have a cousin that works for Dropbox as well.
Yeah, I have a feeling they hired him away.
Yeah. Pardon me?
I have a feeling they offered him even more than Google was giving him.
Yeah. Oh, hey. Yeah. Wow.
Okay, any more questions?
David, speak loud.
Is there any other company that you would entertain the idea of working for?
I would entertain the idea of working for an evil bank in high frequency trading.
As long as they had a cafeteria.
And they often do. They capture a lot of money.
So it's got to be an evil bank as opposed to a non-evil bank?
Don't get Eric into
Okay.
I don't think there are any, but I really don't think there are any non-evil banks.
Boy, we'd have
A local credit union might be non-evil.
Yeah.
I certainly bank with the credit unions for that reason. But local credit unions don't have a high-frequency trading division that captures gobs and gobs of money. So I'd entertain working for one of them, and certainly not as a long-term fun occupation, just as one to get a bunch of money quickly.
You know, and probably, unless someone else has a question, it generated something I was thinking. What's the longevity of an average Google employee? How long, on average, is someone going to stay at Google?
I don't know officially, but I have a hunch it's going to be somewhere around the 4-year mark.
Okay.
That we have a lot of people that come in, work for a little while, and then leave. And then we have a bunch of people that have just been here forever. But there is quite a lot of churn in the industry. And some of that is because maybe they're not a great culture fit at Google or with their particular team, and they didn't look for another team to go to. And some of it is because after they got Google on their resume, they could find somewhere else that would offer them more money. So startups with funding can certainly hire people away. And they're happy to do so because they want to hire people away that have experience with the infrastructure that Google has built and uses internally. We've even open sourced a bunch of the tools.
I'm sorry, say that again?
We've even open sourced a bunch of the tools now. So
Right, yeah.
So we have a tool internally used for building software, just to compile it, right, and organize that, and that's been open sourced. I think it's called Blazor or something. And one of our employees went over to Facebook, built a similar thing, and Facebook has open sourced theirs.
Hey, Josh, look that up. Laser.
So we had a race for 2 questions over here at the same time.
VI or Emacs?
Say it loud.
VI or Emacs?
Your editor of choice, VI or Emacs?
I'm using Vim because that's the one I learned first, and I never switched.
Yeah.
Curiously, though, I type using the Dvorak layout, and I did not change where the Vim key bindings occur. So I'm using the Dvorak version of Vim.
You started that back when we met
Wow.
at Ridgecrest. You've been doing that for a while, right?
Oh yeah, I've been using Dvorak since like 2002.
Also before we met even. Yeah.
Yeah, and also Vim since then.
Back in the day.
Do you edit in Emacs? I thought you edited in VI. David? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
VI or Emacs?
Well, I've been using Dev C++, but I also do.
Oh.
I know I should be using Dev C++ anyway.
No, it's choose the right tool for the right job.
Whatever works,
Doesn't matter, whatever works.
Well, they're both going to work, and I just learned one first and stuck with it.
What level of math do you usually use on a daily basis, or if any?
So the highest amount of math I've ever had to use in a job as a programmer was trigonometry.
There was a collective sigh of relief. I don't know if you felt that coming across.
That was the biggest reaction to anything you've said all night.
Right, and that was way before I joined Google. So Google hasn't had me do any math except like count a bunch of stuff and provide a statistic, a division.
So you do linear regression and regression analysis maybe, or?
I don't.
No.
I never have.
Wow, seriously? Okay.
There are a lot of smiles in the room.
The company does have a big internal push to learn machine learning, but it's not something that's useful in making sure that ads display. It's something that's useful in targeting where the ads should display, which is a different team.
Okay.
Yeah, going over all the data that's gathered and getting a regression and finding out where to do targeting on keywords and movies and all this stuff, definitely that all uses machine learning. But it's not something that I'm supporting. It's a different team.
Gotcha.
Now I'm going to ask a question that is related to the previous question. What is the highest level of math that you have to take in order to get the degree that
I don't think we have a specific requirement for hiring software engineers. So
No,
certainly,
in your degree, what was the highest math? So he went to UC Irvine.
so personally, I have a math and physics degree from as a bachelor's from UCLA, but I've never really had to use those skills as a programmer. I mean, the trigonometry that I needed, it was really useful, and it was nice that I was able to do it, but it was for drawing circles and placing named markers on circles at the different levels so that they didn't overlap with each other really well. So I was just doing a targeting software for the U.S. Navy and drawing a target, a bullseye target, and making it appear at the different levels and whatnot. That was all trig, just to do the drawing.
Careful what you're talking about. You don't want NCIS or whoever's showing up at your door. He used to work at the same place my husband worked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I used trig, and it was for drawing.
Yeah. What else did you?
No, if you're able to do some amount of algebra, then the big O notation on the runtime for algorithms is going to be really easy to do because it's all like polynomials and logs, but in a very kind of simplistic way. And that'll get you through the interview, and you'll be fine.
202, we implement a polynomial class.
So in the interview process, kind of back to that, aside from the technical skills and the math skills or whatever, what other character trait, like what other traits does Google look for? What are the soft skills? I guess that's what I'm asking.
Well, we're looking for culture fit, which is really loosely defined. But it means that basically that you have some kind of interesting, weird hobby, that you're easy to talk to and get along with, that you don't just start yelling when people disagree with you. You really start asking questions to find out what is the root difference of opinion. And internally, we solve a lot of arguments with data. Like, What if two options are best? I don't know. Gather some data, and then we'll decide.
That would be for picking a framework or a data structure or an algorithm, or
a lot of it is a bit higher level than that, like what kind of approach should be done with something. So data structures can certainly be chosen based on how much does it cost to do an insertion, a deletion, and how many times do you expect those two activities to happen. And the exact same form of argument gets done at higher levels, like should we show what kind of ad in what place? Well, just run an experiment, collect some data. If people interact with one more than the other, then one is clearly better off in terms of revenue.
that sounds more like social engineering than anything else.
Yeah, so the YouTube website, you shouldn't be awfully surprised that we're running a lot of different experiments about where things get placed, what colors are used, size fonts, that sort of stuff. And we're tracking levels of user interaction, how long they stay on pages, and that sort of thing. And it's all done to figure out, to find a happy medium that generates a lot of money for the company but doesn't piss off users so that they stop using products. And it keeps varying, right? It's a dynamic marker and it keeps changing, and so we're continuously measuring it.
Is that, would you, do you have UX engineers then? Would that be considered UX engineering?
We do have UX engineers, and yes. So this is what they would call A/B testing. But we're not doing A/B, we have many more than two variants.
A through Q or something.
Yeah. and again, that's gonna, how much of that is done and how many variants is all determined by the team and that specific product. Internally, it's just a bunch of different teams doing their own thing.
So in the balance of things, if you've got the tech skills, you know, you've got the degree background and all that, but you don't necessarily have the soft skills, would you still get the job, or which do you think would be more important?
You can still get the job because engineers are pretty good. They're kind of weird folk anyway. and we tend to prize intelligence more than communication ability. And one of the ways that's measured is with the interview questions.
Okay.
So if you don't have really great communication skills, it may or may not hurt you depending on your interview round. I mean, of course, there's interviewers that have their own different weights on the thing, which is just part of the reason why there's 5 interviews.
5.
So on that day when you had the 5 questions, was that 5 different groups talking to you?
5 different interviewers, yeah, one after the other.
Like a round
and each one had their own question. Each one has their own pet thing that they're looking for. It's kind of random. It's unfortunate, but there's not a whole lot you can do about that part. And if you don't get the interview the first time that you get through, you get denied the position, don't give up forever, because Google is very happy. We're always hiring. We're very happy to just talk to you next year, and your skills might improve. Our business concerns are different. We're looking for different skills, and maybe next year the pairing is good. And if you don't get it that year, do it again the next year. We don't blacklist anyone, to my knowledge.
So it's worth the free food and napping pods to be persistent, is what you're saying.
Oh, yes, yes.
Too bad they don't do your laundry, too, because I would...
And if you have really good skills at interviewing, maybe Google's not your best target. There are many other companies, and the interviewing skills are pretty generally across the board used. So you can certainly, in practice for Google's interviews, get hired somewhere else.
All right, so do you guys have any other questions for Eric? We should probably let him go and finish up stuff. Those were good questions that you guys tossed out. All right.
So
any last words of wisdom? I'll put you on the spot here.
Mostly,
Eric used to actually teach undergraduates at Irvine for a while, so I personally think he's better as a teacher, but he can't make as much money. But he's a fantastic teacher.
yeah, that is a horrible situation about the economics of our society. And yes, I do love education. I don't necessarily value my PhD as a certificate very highly, but it's just sort of a signal to companies that I'm willing to put in a lot of long-term work very steadily. And those are the kinds of employees that they're looking for. So there's a problem that needs to be solved. You should be able to identify the problem, think of different approaches, choose some approach. Maybe it's not a great solution, but it's better than nothing. Try it out, learn from there, and keep iterating until you have something successful. It's persistence. They're really looking for persistence.
Sounds like developing code.
Yes, absolutely. I have twice in my life wasted an entire day only to find out that a plus should be a minus or some other small change like that.
None of you have done that, right?
Yeah.
You got a bunch of nodding going on here.
And there is a time I've worked on something all day, just got nowhere at it, gave up in disgust, and then the next morning think of some different approach, because I was thinking kind of at night as I go to sleep, and then the next morning I have a different approach. I try it. 20 minutes later, my difficult problem from yesterday is done.
You ever had an answer come in a dream?
I haven't had one come in a dream, no.
Okay. Just
But it's certainly possible.
sure.
I've had dreams where I was at school doing tests.
Haven't we all? All right, and just in what's the thumbnail? What was your dissertation on? What's the topic?
So my dissertation was on information flow security in JavaScript, and we were trying to solve a problem that I think is really kind of unsolvable, but that doesn't mean that you should give up trying. We were trying to solve this problem that in a web browser on a web page, a whole bunch of code gets loaded that the site author may not have written themselves. So they're loading some plugin from another team. They're loading some JavaScript like jQuery that comes from some third party. They're loading JavaScript that decides what kind of ad should be shown on the page on the sidebar. And so the page now has a bunch of JavaScript from a bunch of different places, as well as some user identifying information. Maybe it's a page that asks for your credit card number for payment. Definitely don't put ads on those. It's a security risk. And you'll notice most companies don't. But Chase, I believe, had ads on their login homepage at one time. And that's a risk too, because people are going to type in their username and password.
Chase, like the bank?
And so the idea was to tag variables in JavaScript, just tag the variables, propagate these tags in various interactions, like when two things are added or strings are concatenated, that sort of thing. Propagate the tags, and then find out where those tags are going across the network. So once I fill in my login and password, then that is sent out into the network to request the next page that comes along, right? I have to send my user credentials over to the website that's going to let me log in. And it would be interesting to know whether or not JavaScript from the ad in any way, or whether the user-provided entry in any way made its way into the JavaScript that provided the ad, and then the ad issued a network request, right? Because that means that maybe my password leaked out to somebody else's web server through an ad request. That's a horrible thing to have happen.
Well, and given all of these security breaches on all of these major corporations in the last year or two.
Oh yeah, the whole internet security field is really quite on fire. It's a very big field, both in industry and in research. People are paranoid about it. They're trying to find different solutions. A lot of the solutions are very difficult to come by because the original infrastructure of JavaScript was just load it and run. It wasn't really, it didn't have e-commerce in mind so much, or user privacy in mind.
Is TypeScript and ECMA6 and all that going to answer some of that, possibly?
Possibly, it can. I do advocate typing as a way of solving cross-site scripting issues. And it's unfortunate that JavaScript and Python, which I recommended earlier, are both, they're runtime typed instead of statically typed. And there's just some safety that you give up there. You definitely get developer flexibility, but you're giving up some security safety as well. It's a trade-off.
So Eric, there's one more question, and then we're going to call it a day.
So if you do your schooling over again, would you still get your PhD?
In where?
If you do your schooling over again, would you get your PhD?
I did. So between graduate and undergraduate, I worked for 3 years for the U.S. Navy. So
He's saying, would you do it again? though?
Would you still get your PhD?
Would you still do it?
oh no,
What would you do?
that one's easy. No.
It's a long time. You were down there for a long time.
The PhD took me 6 years, and I consider that lost income that I could have been making, say, if I worked at Amazon or Google. But I was at a disadvantage that I did not do the computer science curriculum as an undergraduate. And so my application would have looked a little weird, and I would have definitely been weaker in the interviews on the data structures and algorithms portion. You can learn those things through self.
Oops.
Oh, I guess you're not supposed to learn it by yourself.
The resources were not as much there.
Getting angry.
Right, we're talking like 2000, so the resources just weren't there as much.
Sure. Wow.
Well, thank
Right.
you so much,
Thank-
Eric.
yes,
It's
thank
been
you
great
very
having
much.
Absolutely.
you. You know, you could bring me like a Google hacky sack or something.
I forgot to get my nuclear hat. So everybody that gets hired gets a nuclear hat. You can look
Man,
a little.
Nice.
On your first day, did you have to wear the app with the twirly thing on top of it?
We got those at the end of the first week, and we all wore them to the weekly company meeting that week.
Nice.
So, yeah. So everybody goes and they wear their hat. It's
I wanna
really impressive how many people they hire every week. It's in the hundreds.
So I expect to see pictures on Facebook of that because I have not seen that picture yet. All right, Eric, you have a good night. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. I'm completely willing to come back again.
Yeah, we'd love
It's been
that.
fun.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.